ever feel like you're swimming in information, but then actually trying to explain the key points or build an argument?
It just falls apart.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge challenge, right?
Yeah.
Cutting through all that noise to find what really matters.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we want to get into today. We're doing a deep dive specifically into that.
Helping you, the listener, navigate how to write effectively, argue well, basically pull out the valuable stuff efficiently.
We've pulled together a bunch of resources, stuff on APA style, guides on argumentation, thesis statements, even logical fallacies.
Yeah, a mix of things. Style guides, writing center handouts, some useful YouTube explainers too. We're sort of synthesizing the key ideas from all of them for you.
So the mission today, give you the practical tools to build solid arguments, avoid common mistakes, and just get your ideas across clearly, whether you're writing a paper or, making a case at work.
Exactly. Ready to jump in.
Let's do it. So what's the absolute foundation? Where do we start? It all starts with the academic argument. Now, when we say argument here, we don't mean like a shouting match.
Right, not a fight.
No. In academia, an argument is your main idea, your claim or thesis, and then you back it up. You support it with evidence. It's really the core of most academic writing, even when it's not explicitly called an argumentative paper.
So it's more than just summarizing. You have to take a stand.
Precisely. You need to express a point of view and then provide the proof. It's about moving beyond just reporting information.
And these skills, they're useful outside of writing essays, I imagine.
Oh, hugely. Learning to argue well is fundamental to critical thinking. It helps you reason better, make decisions, evaluate all the stuff you read and hear every single day. It's about, being discerning.
Okay, so the argument is key. And you mentioned the thesis statement as part of that. Why is that so important?
The thesis. Think of it as the absolute core claim of your whole paper. It's that one specific thing you're setting out to prove.
Like a signpost for the reader.
Exactly like a signpost. Or a roadmap. It tells the reader exactly what question you're answering and what your interpretation is. It has to be arguable, something people could potentially disagree with.
So not just a statement of fact. What makes a good thesis statement? What are the parts?
Well, typically you need your main topic, obviously, then your specific opinion or angle on that topic, and often it helps to include a kind of blueprint of your reasons, maybe your main 3 supporting points.
Topic, specific opinion, blueprint. Okay. And it needs to be focused. Debatable.
Yes, specific, arguable, focused, and it really needs to pass the so what test. Like, why does this claim matter? And the how and why test. How are you going to prove it? Why do you believe it?
Can you give an example? Maybe take a weak one and make it stronger.
Sure. Let's say you start with something vague like social media affects public awareness. Okay, true, but
Yeah, a bit bland.
Right. A stronger version might be social media platforms significantly increase public awareness of social injustices by algorithmically boosting trending topics and enabling rapid information sharing. See, more specific. However, this heightened awareness often faces challenges regarding information accuracy and the spread of misinformation.
Ah, okay. Much clearer. You know exactly what issues that paper is going to tackle. It's specific, it's arguable, it sets up the complexity.
Exactly. It gives a clear direction.
Now, you mentioned different paper types, analytical, argumentative. Does the thesis change much?
The function is similar, but the focus shifts slightly. In an analytical paper, your thesis is maybe interpreting something, a text, data. In an argumentative paper, it's taking a clear stand on an issue you could debate. Expository, maybe outlining what you're going to explain. Knowing the paper's purpose helps you sharpen that claim.
Got it. Okay, so we have the argument, we have the thesis. How do we actually structure the writing? Especially thinking about something like APA style.
Right. APA style, especially for empirical research, has a pretty standard structure. It's designed for clarity so others can understand and maybe even replicate your work.
What are the main sections?
You've got your title page, then the abstract, that's the quick summary. The introduction sets the stage, gives background, states your question or hypothesis. Then the method section, that's crucial. It details exactly how you did your study.
Super specific, right?
Oh, yeah. Then results, just the findings, usually with stats. Then the discussion, where you interpret those results, talk about implications, limitations. And finally, the references list.
It's a very logical flow. Introduction, method, results, discussion. Makes sense. Yeah. What about style within that structure?
APA talks about levels of style. Beyond the big structure, there's the high-level style, basically, writing clearly and concisely. Meaning a formal, straightforward tone. You generally avoid things like slang, contractions, too much humor, pop culture references. Anything that might muddy the waters or distract from the ideas themselves?
Keep it professional and focused.
Exactly. The focus is on the ideas. You want clear communication above all else. So, instead of saying something flashy like, participants were subjected to a pain inducement apparatus.
Sounds painful.
Right. You just say something clearer and more direct, like, participants immersed their hands in a bucket of ice water. Precision matters more than fancy words.
Simple and direct. And what about language related to people, like research participants? Any guidelines there?
Yes, definitely. APA emphasizes avoiding biased language. Be sensitive about labels. Use specific terms rather than broad generalizations. For instance, say, patients with schizophrenia, not schizophrenic.
Puts the person first.
Right, and acknowledge people's participation. Instead of the subjects were given a questionnaire, maybe students completed the questionnaire. It reflects their active role. Little shifts, but important ones.
Respectful and accurate. Okay,
Yeah.
and the references list sounds important. What are the key rules?
Super important for academic integrity. It lists only the sources you actually cited in your paper. Starts on a new page titled References, centered. Everything's alphabetized by the first author's last name, double-spaced throughout.
And the formatting for each entry.
Oh, there are specific rules for journals, books, chapters, things like italics for titles, capitalization rules, using eds for editors, PP for page numbers. The main thing is consistency and getting it right based on the guide.
Okay, structure and style covered. Now back to building that argument. How do we make it really strong, really convincing?
Well, first off, make absolutely sure you're answering the question you were asked. Every point you make should connect back to the prompt or your main thesis. Plan it out.
Have a clear map.
Exactly. And within each section or paragraph, your evidence has to consistently support the specific point you're making right there. Don't just throw in facts randomly.
Keep it tight and relevant. What else makes an argument stronger?
Engaging with counterarguments. A really strong paper doesn't ignore opposing views. It actually addresses one or two serious counterarguments thoughtfully.
Shows you've really thought it through.
Yes, and it gives you a chance to explain why your position is still stronger. But, and this is important, your response to the counterargument has to ultimately support your original thesis. Don't accidentally argue against yourself.
Yeah, that would be bad. So if a counterargument makes you rethink things,
Then you might need to go back and actually tweak your thesis. Make sure everything aligns. And always, always think about your audience.
who are we writing for usually?
In academia, assume your reader is smart, maybe even an expert in the field, but crucially, they might not agree with you. Or they might not know your specific take. So you have to state your claims and evidence very clearly. Don't assume your professor just knows what you mean. Spell it out.
Which brings us back to persuasion.
Right,
You mentioned ethos, pathos, logos before. How do they fit in here?
right. The classic appeals. Ethos is your credibility. You build it by citing sources correctly, being thorough, showing you know your stuff.
Being trustworthy.
Exactly. Pathos is the appeal to emotion. It's usually less direct in academic writing, but you might use it subtly in how you frame things or choose examples, connecting to the reader's values or understanding.
But the main one is logos.
Logos, yes. The appeal to logic and reason. That's the heart of academic argument. It's your evidence, your facts, stats, logical connections, reasoned claims. That's where the heavy lifting happens.
Makes sense. Logic and evidence are king. So let's talk more about that evidence. What makes evidence good?
Well, we talked about firsthand your own research and secondhand from others. The absolute key for any evidence is credibility. Reliable, accurate, trustworthy. That's why things like peer-reviewed journals or scholarly books are the gold standard. You need sources you can trust.
And when we use evidence from sources, especially quotations, how do we do that effectively? It's not just about dropping quotes in, is it?
Definitely not. Quotes should be used strategically, like spice. Your paper should mostly be your own voice, your own analysis.
So when should we quote directly?
Quote, when you need to discuss someone's exact wording, maybe analyze it. Or if the source is a major authority and their words carry weight. Or sometimes the original phrasing is just so perfect or impactful you want to use it directly.
Okay, purposeful quoting. How do we weave them in smoothly?
Never just drop a quote by itself. Always introduce it within your own sentence. Use a reporting verb like argues, suggests, notes, claims.
Sets it up.
Right. And then, crucially, after the quote, explain it. Tell the reader why it's important, how it supports your point. Don't make them guess the connection.
Introduce. Quote. Explain. Got it. What about really long quotes?
Block quotes. Yeah, if a quote is longer, APA usually says 40 words or more, you indent the whole block of text. You usually don't use quotation marks around it then because the indentation signals it's a quote.
Okay. And can we ever change things inside a quote slightly?
Yes, carefully. You use square brackets. You can use them to change, say, a verb tense or a pronoun so the quote fits grammatically into your sentence, like changing I to the author maybe.
Useful.
Or if you need to add a word or two for clarity. And if there's a typo or weird grammar in the original quote that you want to keep, you put sick right after it. That tells your reader, hey, this error was in the original, it's not mine.
Good tip. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Logical fallacies. These sound like traps we need to avoid.
They absolutely are. Fallacies are flaws in reasoning. They make an argument weak, even if it sounds convincing on the surface. Often they rely on emotion or distraction instead of actual logic.
And they're common, right? Easy to fall into.
Very common. In our own writing and in things we read or hear every day, being aware of them is key.
Okay, let's name some names. Give us a few common ones.
Sure. There's post hoc, ergo propter hoc, fancy Latin, meaning after this, therefore because of this. It's assuming that because B happened after A must have caused B. Like if you wear your lucky socks and your team wins, your socks didn't cause the win. Correlation isn't causation.
Right. Classic mistake.
Oops.
What else?
Slippery slope. That's arguing that one small step will inevitably lead to a terrible chain reaction without enough proof. If we allow X, then Y will happen, then Z, and soon, disaster.
Usually exaggerated.
Often, yes. Then there's weak analogy, making a comparison between two things that aren't really similar enough to support the point you're making.
Like comparing apples and spaceships.
Kind of. Appeal to authority is another. Citing someone who sounds like an authority but isn't actually an expert on that specific topic, like a movie star giving medical advice. Need relevant expertise.
Okay, keep going.
Ad populum, or the bandwagon fallacy. Arguing something must be true or right just because lots of people believe it. Popularity doesn't mean it's correct.
Everyone's doing it. Doesn't make it right.
Exactly. Ad hominem, this one's nasty, attacking the person making the argument instead of the argument itself. You can't trust his climate change research. Look at the car he drives.
Focuses on the person, not the point. Is to quoque related.
Yes. To quoque, you too, is a type of ad hominem. Deflecting criticism by saying, well, you do it too, doesn't actually address the criticism, like hypocrisy.
Gotcha. What about playing on emotions?
That's the appeal to pity. Trying to make someone feel sorry for you or someone else to get them to accept your conclusion, even if the pity isn't relevant to the logic.
And twisting someone's words.
The straw man. You misrepresent your opponent's argument, make it weaker or more extreme than it is, just so it's easier to knock down.
Dishonest debating tactic.
Definitely. Then there's the red herring, introducing a totally irrelevant topic to distract or divert attention away from the actual issue being discussed.
Changing the subject.
Pretty much. False dichotomy or black and white thinking presents only two options as the only possibilities, when really there might be shades of gray or other alternatives. Either we do this, or everything collapses.
Limits the choices unfairly.
Right. Equivocation is tricky. It uses a word with multiple meanings in a misleading way within the same argument, switching the meaning halfway through.
Playing word games.
And finally, a really common one. Circular argument, or begging the question. This is when your argument's proof is basically just a restatement of the argument itself. This plan is good because it's effective. Well, why is it effective? You haven't actually proven anything.
It just goes in a circle. Wow, that's a lot of ways reasoning can go wrong. How do we spot these in our own writing?
It takes practice. One good trick is to pretend you disagree with your own conclusion. Then read your argument critically. Where are the weak spots? Where might someone push back?
Challenge yourself.
Exactly. Another way is to literally list out your main points and the specific evidence supporting each one. Does the evidence really prove the point? Is there a logical leap? Being aware of the fallacies you personally tend to use can help too.
Like knowing your own bad habits. Okay, so we've got a logical structure, strong evidence, we're avoiding fallacies. What about the actual words we use? Word choice matters, right?
Hugely. Clarity and precision are everything in academic writing. You want to avoid language that's awkward, vague, or unclear.
Get rid of the waffle.
Pretty much. Limit cliches, too. They sound tired. Try to find fresher, more direct ways to say things. And a big one. Don't try too hard to sound smart.
Oh, don't use big words.
Well, use the right words, but don't just throw in complex vocabulary to impress. Often, clear, simpler language conveys sophisticated ideas much more effectively. Focus on strong nouns and verbs. They carry the weight of your meaning.
Makes the writing more active and direct.
Exactly. Good writing is often surprisingly simple in its phrasing.
So, any tips for improving word choice? How do we get better at finding those precise words?
Use a dictionary and thesaurus, but carefully. Don't just swap synonyms without understanding the subtle differences in meaning.
Nuance matters.
It really does. Try writing down a few different ways to phrase a key sentence, the slash option technique. Seeing alternatives can help you pick the strongest one. Look out for repetition. Sometimes it's needed for emphasis, but often it just makes writing clunky.
Good repetition versus bad repetition.
Right. Reading your paper aloud is a fantastic technique. Your ears will often catch awkward phrasing or unclear sentences that your eyes miss.
I've heard that helps a lot.
It really does. And of course, get feedback. Ask someone else to read it specifically looking for clarity. Do they understand exactly what you mean?
A fresh perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, nearly there. You mentioned logic earlier. Can we quickly touch on what makes an argument valid in a formal logic sense? Sometimes that term is confusing.
Yeah, it has a very specific meaning in logic. A valid argument is one where if all the premises are true, then the conclusion must be true. It's about the structure of the argument.
Even if the premises themselves are false.
Exactly. The classic example is premise 1, all actors are robots. Premise 2, Tom Cruise is an actor. Conclusion, therefore, Tom Cruise is a robot.
Okay, premise 1 is clearly false.
Right, but the structure is valid. If actors were all robots and Tom Cruise is an actor, then logically he would have to be a robot. Validity is about the logical connection, not the truth of the starting points.
So an argument can be valid, but still lead to a false conclusion if the premises are wrong.
Precisely. And an invalid argument is one where the conclusion doesn't necessarily follow from the premises, even if those premises happen to be true. Validity is about the form of the argument.
Got it. It's a structural property. Okay, last piece of the puzzle then. What holds all this together? The structure, the arguments, the evidence? How do we guide the reader?
Transitions. They're like the glue. Transition words and phrases are crucial for creating flow. They connect ideas within your paragraphs, linking evidence back to a point, for example.
And between paragraphs, too.
Absolutely. They signal to the reader how the next idea relates to the previous one. Are you adding a point, contrasting, giving an example, concluding? Words like furthermore, however, for instance, therefore, in contrast, finally. They're signposts.
Guiding the reader through your argument smoothly.
Exactly. They make the whole thing cohesive and much easier to follow. Without them, even good ideas can feel disjointed.
So it really sounds like effective academic writing is a combination of things.
It really is. You need that clear thesis, arguments built on solid, credible evidence, and awareness of your audience, careful avoidance of those logical pitfalls, and precise language glued together with good transitions.
And mastering this isn't just about schoolwork, is it?
Not at all. These are critical thinking and communication skills. They help you analyze information better, make stronger cases, and just engage more effectively with the world around you, way beyond the classroom.
So here's a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Now that you're more aware of things like logical fallacies and the importance of clear evidence, how might that change the way you listen to the news, or engage in debates, or even just evaluate claims you see online every day?
Yeah, thinking about how these principles apply outside of just writing papers, that's where it's really powerful, doesn't it? Something to keep exploring.